Here are solutions to homework set number 4 for ECE 461 control systems. This homework set looks at PLC, timer blocks, and then control systems, error constants, Routh criteria, and sketching a root locus. Now, the first problem is to use timer blocks to do this. I want to hold the button down for 1 second to have it start. Then that turns on the lights one by one. Then get the first light on, second light on, second light, third light on, second light, fourth light on. They remain on for 5 seconds, then turn off. So a ladder program that does that would be as follows. I'm going to hold the button down for 1 second. That turns on the red light. When the red light turns on for 1 second, turns on the yellow light. Yellow light stays on for 1 second, turns on the green light. Green light stays on for 1 second, turns on the blue light. Blue light turns on for 5 seconds, turns everybody off. So to get that to work, I compile. Takes it a while. This is kind of where I suggest that you use the Allen Bradley PLCs rather than PLC Fiddle. It's a whole lot more fun seeing stuff actually run. And the Allen Bradley PLCs actually have a pretty nice language, a lot easier than the PLC Fiddle. PLC Fiddle isn't bad. It's better with the actual Allen Bradley PLCs. Plus, there's more jobs tied to Allen Bradley PLCs than PLC Fiddle. So here I compiled it. I'm connecting to the PLC. A little bit later, it'll ask me if I want to turn it on. At this point, it should be running. So here's the program running. And what it should do is, so now as I hold it down, if I tap the button, nothing happens. So hold it down for 1 second. It goes through the sequence, 1 second, 1 second, 1 second, 5 seconds off. And note that once you get your code downloaded, I don't need to be connected to the computer anymore. That's what PLCs are really designed for. If this is a car wash, once you get the code downloaded, it's running forever and ever. And that kind of illustrates timer blocks. Next problem on the homework looks at feedback. This is looking at a feedback control system. So if I have this system like so, here's your G of S. I've got unity feedback. If the input is a step, ramp, or parabola, here's your reference. What is the steady state error? So for the first one, the system type is how many poles are at S equals 0. To get the system type, you just count. This has 0 poles at S equals 0, 1 pole, 2 poles, 0 poles. The error constant Kp is the DC gain. Plug in S equals 0, I get a DC gain of 7.14, infinity, infinity, minus 7.14. Sometimes this also does not apply. It depends upon the textbook you're using. Either one works. The error constant Kv is the DC gain of S times G of S. So this would be 0, 7.14, infinity, 0. What you're really doing is, if I let S go to 0, this can be approximated as something over S. In this case, there is no 1 over S term, type 0 system. This is an integrator type 1, so it's a constant over S, type 2 system, type 1. The error constant then, or steady state error per step input, is 1 over Kp plus 1. So a positive error says if I want to go to 1, I'm going to miss. I'm going to wind up 0.12 short of the output. A negative steady state error says if I want to go to 1, I'm actually going to overshoot it by a little bit. And that's kind of what it shows. This is the steady state error per step input. What that matters is if I say I want the motor to go 55 miles an hour, how much do I miss my target by? Routh criteria looks at a little more information. The error constant to say, assuming I reach steady state, how much do I miss my constant output? It doesn't tell you stability or not. It just says, if I reach steady state, how much will I miss it? The Routh criteria will give you an idea of what range of k makes the system stable. So suppose I have this cubic polynomial. What range of k results in a stable system? To do that, I set up a Routh table. Multiply out the polynomial, then take every other term. So here's the 1s cubed, then every other term. 98s, so these are the odd terms. Here's the even terms, 21s squared, and 2k minus 120. Now for the next row, I do the determinant of 1, 21, 98, 2k minus 120 over 21 gives you 103 minus 0.09k. Next row, this guy right here, take the previous two rows. That'll be the determinant of minus 21, 103 minus 0.09k, 2k minus 120, 0, over this term. Gives you 2k minus 120. Next row, and so on. And there is a shortcut. When I have a 0, 0 to the right, 0 comes down. So 0, 0 to the right means the 0 comes down. When there's a single 0, this term drops down immediately. This one you got to work for. To be stable, there can be no sign flips on the first column. So positive, positive. This has to be positive, meaning k is less than 1089. This has to be positive, meaning k is bigger than 60. The net result is they all have to be satisfied. To be stable, k has to be between 60 and 1089. Now, where that's useful is if this is a knob to play with, I can pick any range of k between that range and be stable. May not be a good response, but at least it's stable. So kind of put in some software limits to make sure the operator doesn't make it go unstable. Fourth order polynomial. What range of k results in a stable system? So again, multiply out the polynomials. Now take the even terms, 1s to the fourth, 119s squared, 168 plus 2k. Then the odd terms, 19s cubed, 269s, and now fill in the Routh table. What I would do is, there's a 0 here, so this term comes straight down to this point. There's a 0 here, that term comes straight down, down 2 over 1, down 2 over 1. When I have a 0, 0 to the right, this becomes 0. 0, 0 to the right, that becomes 0. Stop when you get to 0. These terms you got to work for. So this one right here will be minus the determinant of 119, 119, 269 over 19, gives you 104.84. B is minus the determinant of 19, 104, 269, 168 plus 2k over 104 gives you 238 plus 0.03. To be stable, there can be no sign flips. So plus, plus, plus. This has to be positive. K is less than 658. This has to be positive. K is greater than minus 84. So range of k for stability is minus 84 to plus 658. That's the Routh table. Problem 6 is sketch the root locus with real poles. So what I would do is start out, I've got poles at plus 1, minus 10, minus 12. I'll have real axis loci when there is an odd number of poles and zeros to the right. So here this is even, odd, odd. There's the real axis loci. The breakaway point will be roughly the middle between plus 1 and minus 10, minus 4.5, pushed right by that minus charge. So like these are minus charges, zeros are plus charges. Take an electron, it reaches equilibrium right about here. So there's the breakaway point. I'll have 3 asymptotes. It's got 3 extra poles, no zeros. So the angle is theta, such that 3 times theta is 180. Gives you plus minus 60, 180. The intercept is the center of mass. So the center of mass is the average of plus 1 minus 10 minus 12, gives you minus 7. So here's the asymptote at plus 60, minus 60, 180. The root locus then leaves here and goes to the asymptote. So here's what it really looks like. This is at minus 12, minus 10, plus 1. As k increases, these poles come together, split apart at the breakaway point, and then approach the asymptote. And this point right here is the J omega crossing. That point's important because at this point k equals 0. K increases, there's the max k for stability. Problem 7. 4 poles. Again, what I would do is start out, I've got a pole at minus 1, minus 3, minus 7, minus 8. The real axis loci will be when there's an odd number of poles to the right. So this is even, odd, even, odd, even. Breakaway point will be right in the middle, pushed right just a little bit by these minus charges, right in the middle, pushed left a little bit by those minus charges. The asymptotes. I've got 4 poles, no zeros, so the asymptotes are 4 times theta is 180, plus minus 45 degrees, minus 135. The intercept is the center of mass, the average, 4.75. So here's the asymptotes. And the root locus will split apart and go to the asymptotes. So that's what the root locus looks like. And right here, again, that's the J omega crossing. That point's important. That gives you the max gain for stability. If you have complex poles and zeros, same idea, but there's a breakaway point and breakaway angle, approach angle. The approach angle is what it takes for the angles to add up to 180. So for example, in this case, I've got 2 complex poles at minus 1 plus J4, minus 1 minus J4, 0, minus 8. In terms of real axis loci, be even, odd, so even, odd, even. There's the real axis loci. Breakaway point is right in the middle, pushed left a little bit by those minus charges. Asymptotes, I've got 4 poles, no zeros, 4 asymptotes. The center of mass is at minus 2.5, going at 45 degrees, minus 45, 135, minus 135. So that's what the locus looks like. The departure angle, that tells you how you go from this pole to that asymptote. To calculate the departure angle is take a point epsilon away, like right here. Calculate the angle from all the poles. And if I do that, I get 136 degrees. It's got to be 180. So I am short by 43 degrees. It's a pole, so I need a double negative. If this is minus 43 degrees, I subtract a negative, gives you plus 43 degrees. So the departure angle will be minus 43 degrees, going to that asymptote. And then for complex zeros, kind of same idea. Here's your root locus. I've got a pole at 0, minus 1, minus 5, minus 6, 0 at plus J2, minus J2. So real axis loci, this is even, odd, even, odd, even. I've got 4 poles, 2 zeros, 2 extra poles, gives you 2 asymptotes, angles plus minus 90 degrees, and the center mass, the asymptote intersect, is at minus 6. Right here. So there's the asymptote intersect. So this will go to that asymptote. This has split away right in the middle, pulled right by the zeros, and goes to the 0. This is the approach angle. To figure out the approach angle is take a point epsilon away, calculate the angles from the zeros and the poles, and that gives me minus 103 degrees. any point in the root locus has got to add up to 180, so I'm off by minus 77 degrees. So that is the approach angle. I'm going to come in at minus 77 degrees. So actually this guy comes in, loops over, and comes back. And that's the root locus. And with that, that is homework set number 4 for 461. What we'll be doing with the root locus is this is your shopping list. I can get any closed loop poles that are on the root locus. The challenge then is, what is the best K? Meaning, where do I want to put the poles on the root locus? Once I specify where the poles belong, I can find K. That's called gain compensation, something that we'll cover next week. But as it is, that's homework set 4 for control systems.